Hey everybody, welcome to the Fire It Up with CJ show. Today we're going to be talking about this book, Bounty from the Box, the CSA Farm Cookbook. Look at this book. I think it weighs about at least 5 pounds. You can
It's about 4 pounds, 4 ounces. I know this because I mail it out all the time.
Look at this book. It's incredible. So we have Mia, welcome.
Yes, thank you for having me.
I'm excited. So tell us what is CSA?
Well, CSA stands for Community Supported Agriculture. Mm-hmm. So this is a program where you basically pay a farm, a CSA farm, a lump sum of money at the beginning of the year, typically. Mm-hmm. And then each week during the growing season, you get a box of produce that comes. Either they deliver it to a drop-off site, a pickup drop-off site, or sometimes you can get it at your door, or you can pick it up at your local farmer's market.
Okay, so how do I sign up for one of these things? How do I start if I would like to? Because I've seen there's several different services out there, right?
Right. And it's important to sort of make a distinction between some of them. So first of all, probably the most simple thing is that you can Google, just put in Google CSA farm in your area, the name of your town where you're living in, and see what just gets pulled up from there. Another really good resource is localharvest.org. Localharvest.org contains a huge database of just thousands upon thousands of CSA farms, farmers markets across the country. So they have a searchable database where you can also look up by city and state, and they can also know where your location is as well.
So, but when I'm actually going to localharvest.org or I type in CSA and I find a community supported agriculture farm, what does that mean? Is it giving them some type of credentials or accreditation that they have?
Right. Well, CSA really stands for community supported that part of it. So all that means is that instead of buying your produce at a market or grocery store, someplace like that, you're just giving your money directly to the farm.
Okay, got it. So it doesn't mean that it's organic or any more healthy than my grocery store.
Right.
So
most often it is, because the farms that grow, that do CSAs, they typically are organic. They may not be certified organic because it's actually quite costly to be certified, but they will almost always try to follow best agricultural practices, so they won't use chemical fertilizers or synthetic pesticides, that kind of thing.
So can I select that? When I look over to CSA or go to a local harvest, can I actually select an organic farm that I want to get a box from?
Yeah, I'm not sure entirely if you can search on that criteria, but a list of farms will come up, and in that listing it will usually say whether a farm is certified organic, what kind of growing practices they use, and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So, but chances are excellent that if you do go this route and finding a CSA farm, your produce will be a much better quality than what you'll find at your grocery store.
And what's the price difference between? So I've always thought about doing. I did kind of a service with a farmer deliver stuff at my door, and then I feel a little bit guilty because I'm having a farm deliver stuff to my door when I have a Whole Foods 2 blocks away.
Right.
And I have no idea what the cost difference is, but why would someone want to have food delivered versus go to their local grocery store or go to Whole Foods, especially if it's nearby?
Well, let's make a distinction here first about the delivery, because there are some aggregators, what they call CSA farm aggregators, like Full Circle in the Seattle area is one of those.
What's it called?
It's called Full Circle.
Full Circle, okay, yeah.
And they do actually aggregate the products of many different farms around in the surrounding areas, and it's just more of a logistics kind of a thing. So there are those that can deliver right to your door, and you can order just exactly what you want to for that week, versus a single CSA farm that offers you a box of produce of whatever they have. So in that sense, you don't have a choice.
Right. It's whatever. This is what I grew.
Right.
Yeah.
And so you're sharing directly in the risk of that farm and what will happen with the weather, etc.
Right.
But those models, the CSA farm just paying it directly, it means all the money goes right to that CSA farm.
Right. Versus if I pay an aggregator, that part of the money goes to the aggregator, so it's partially where I want the money to go.
Exactly. Right. And if you pay, if you buy your food at a farmer's market, certainly much of that is going to go right directly to the farmer as well. It may give you more flexible choices. It's not a right or wrong decision to go through a CSA or a farmer's market. They're really
is it about the price? I mean, since price is an issue, is it about the same price or cheaper than the grocery store?
Yeah, generally prices for CSA farm or farmer's market, they're going to be a bit higher. And they're probably going to be about 20 to 30%, maybe even more.
Than going to like a Safeway
Safeway. But the thing that most people don't realize is how much our food is. The cost of our food is heavily subsidized.
How so?
By commercial agriculture. So if you're thinking about like fields in California, farms, massive farms, where everything is on a huge scale, where it's centralized, they've driven down the prices through their production methods and their scale down to like pennies on the pound.
Oh, wow.
And they're also, too, with wheat, corn, soybeans, rice, those kinds of subsidized crops, they have made their inclusion into our food, especially processed food, have made the cost of our food deceptively cheap. And so people really have no idea how much their food is actually subsidized by the government. And so they have no idea.
But I thought you were saying that they actually are able to produce it at a cheaper cost because they're doing it at mass. But then there's subsidies too.
But there are also subsidies that the U.S. government pays farmers to grow.
For only big farmers.
Corn, wheat, soybeans. But it goes into more of our food system than we realize because it's not just the raw products. It's also all the processed food. So if you buy a box of cornflakes, for instance, or you buy packaged macaroni and cheese or any of those processed foods, the cost of those raw ingredients, which are usually commodities, the wheat, soybeans, corn, that lower cost of the government-paid commodities goes directly into the price of what you're paying into that food. So our food, because part of that cost is covered by the government, and because it's grown on such a huge scale, it is artificially inexpensive. And we as consumers have no idea how much it actually costs to produce.
Wow. So when I'm getting my mac and cheese, it sounds like the part of that price is being subsidized because of the commodity.
Exactly. Right. The government is literally paying farmers to grow the wheat.
Certain farmers, then. Is it these mass farmers? Or do these smaller community farms, do they get a chunk of it?
And that's another reason why, it's really good to support these local farms as well, CSA farms or organic, smaller farms, community farms. I would use that term. I think that's a more specific way. Because the money goes right to them, but also to the U.S. government commodity system does not help to pay toward anything toward regular, these smaller, what they call specialty farms, which essentially are fruit and vegetable farms. So if there's a crop failure in a given year or whatnot, there's almost always insurance. There's crop insurance, and there's some kind of grants or something that will help cover the loss of farmers' crops and
for larger
disaster. For the commodity crop farms.
But for smaller farms.
For the non-commodity farms, regardless of their size, there is no government insurance.
I did not realize that. So that's why the emphasis of we want to have community farms because they're important.
Right.
Like if we have an apocalyptic world, we're going to be like, where's our food?
Exactly.
We can't get food from California or Mexico. We're going to actually have to grow our own food. So if we don't actually support people who are locally farming, then There's no financial incentive. They can't.
Right. And farmers already, I mean, even those smaller farmers, it's hard enough to make a living from this kind of farming. So anything that you can do to support them, whether it's subscribing directly through a CSA or, shopping for their products through a grocery store that carries local farmers' foods or farmers' markets.
Yeah.
And those are things that go back, that your dollar goes directly to helping those farms, and so your dollar actually stays in the community.
Right. So in a lot of ways, when you're buying those foods, you're also investing in having those types of farms, local farms.
And you're investing in your community because that dollar stays in your community.
Yeah. Okay, so February 24th. What is it? What's February 24th?
That's the magic day. It is CSA Day. It's actually what it is. It's a national, sort of an informal national, but it's a CSA sign-up day. So a couple years ago, Small Farm Central, which is an organization that promotes smaller farmers, they did a study and they found that a lot of people tend to sign up for CSAs on February 28th. So this year,
that's the weirdest thing.
So this year it has been made out to be February 24th. So that is the day that actually many CSAs around the country are celebrating. They're putting the word out. Many of them will be running specials too around that day and offering just, extra activities and publicity and promotion that if you sign up on February 24th or right around that time, that you may get a discount on your produce.
Right, very cool. Okay, so if you ever wanted to try this in February 24th, even though people mostly sign up on February 28th, I don't understand that.
It's somewhere around late February.
Yeah, exactly. So. Okay, but on February 24th, if you ever wanted to try this, there's going to be a discount for people who go over
for some farms. That's up to the farms.
Right,
there'll be a lot of publicity. And if you want to find out more, go to Small Farm Central's website. They have a website. The URL is csaday.info. So CSA Day.
I mean, if I want to sign up for a box to get one of these boxes.
You can go to that site in order to just get more information about what CSA Day is about. They list a number of farms on their site, but by no means is it all the farms in the country.
Okay, now my next question is, I see a whole bunch of farms. I'm like, I don't know, which farm should I choose? Like, is there, help me, what when you think about which farm to choose, so there's organic or not, what are you looking for?
Something like that, to probably just kind of sift through all of that, probably Local Harvest is a really useful tool for that. So go to localharvest.org. And just type in your location and it'll come up with a whole list of CSA farms.
And their part of Local Harvest is also going to be associated with this February 24th
Yes, I'm sure
thing.
that they will be a part of it too.
Okay. So, all right. So here's the thing. I remember signing up for this like once, and I got a big box of stuff, and I was like, what? What is this thing that I've never seen before? And then this is where the 4-pound, 4-ounce book comes in into help us out. Okay, so tell us a little. Now, this book, actually, what I love about this book is it's organized by season. So we have like winter. And we have a whole bunch in front of us. We have a whole bunch of different vegetables that you get.
So the book is arranged by season. So if I can
here's. Look at us do our workout. Okay, here's winter. Here's winter. So it actually has winter describes some of the types of things that are happening on winter. You actually have. Tell us what else is in here.
A little bit about the structure of the book. So first of all, it covers about 90 different crops, over 90 different crops, fruits, vegetables, and herbs, including some kind of oddball ones that you might not expect to find.
What's an oddball one?
Oh, like coconut and lychees. And part of this was because farms in Florida and Hawaii grow some very different things than the rest of the country. So I wanted to be able to make the book really usable for people.
Wherever you are, wherever your country. Exactly. If you're in Hawaii, you can get coconuts.
But most of the book, of course, is following more your typical 4-season CSA season.
Okay.
So the book, again, is divided by season, but the crops are arranged alphabetically within that season.
Okay. So I'm in winter right now.
So if we go to winter.
So So I see Tina's Pride. So I see a story about a farm in Homestead, Florida. And what would this story tell me?
So each kind of season will start out with kind of an opener. I'm not doing a very good job of putting this up. But basically this opening page kind of shows sort of what's happening around different farms around different parts of the country, including Florida and Hawaii.
And this is U.S., so this is
right. Yeah,
so like if you're in Australia, like this is not meant for you.
Right. But Kiwis are in the book, and Kiwis come from Australia, so it's universal.
Okay, good. All right. Okay, got it.
Okay, so anyway, each season will open up with this kind of a more of an in-depth story about one particular farm from a different part of the country. So in this case, it happened to be Florida, because actually Florida is in the height of the growing season right now.
Oh, okay.
So the book actually contains a lot of stories about different farms and different aspects of food, and I'll go into that in a minute.
Yeah. But
an opener like this actually gives people, there's about 8 pages or so that are devoted to the story of this Florida farm. And what it does is basically just to kind of give people a more in-depth sense of what the story is behind getting that food to your plate. And
in the book, you say that we often have misconceptions about farms and the whole process. What don't we know? I know we don't know about. I didn't know about the subsidies. I knew about the subsidies, but I didn't know that they didn't go to CSAs.
Right.
But what else don't we know?
Well,
that we should
it just is an incredible amount of work. I mean, one of the issues that has come up is that it's great that so much attention's being paid to local food, local farms. There's more of an interest in farm-to-table dining than there ever has been before. But along that sort of wave of publicity, it also often comes with it kind of a deepening of a notion of the farm as being kind of a more of a romantic, idyllic, pastoral place.
Right, isn't it like that movie that I saw? Okay.
and really, you know, what farming is just about hours upon hours of just
grueling work.
Right, where farmers easily are putting in 16 or 17-hour days during the season, and even then they're coming out with an income that's hardly enough to live on.
I know, I'm thinking about Madison, Bridges in Madison Park, or whatever that book. And the woman's there writing these beautiful flowery passages, right? And I'm like, aren't you going to milk the cows, you know?
Right.
Where's all that work, right? And what you were saying is this actually, when you read the 8 pages about, or whatever number of pages, you really get a sense of what goes into making food.
And just what a struggle it can be in order to grow that food. Also, a lot of the economic difficulties. I think pretty much all 4 farms that I covered in the season openers, they all had just these really in-depth stories about how the economics for them have changed completely since the time their farms began.
How have the economics changed then? What we're kind of like, oh, I didn't even know that.
Yeah, it's something that's actually very relevant for right now with what's happening in the news. Our administration is talking about NAFTA, which is the North American Free Trade Agreement, and that opened up channels for Canada and Mexico.
Right.
And the thing was with NAFTA, although there's some good things about it, it just decimated farmers in Mexico and in America, and in just some very strange ways.
In America too. So I have a friend who's Mexican, and she said they used to have local farmers providing local food, but then when our subsidized food got shipped down to Mexico, a lot of those little farms they went under. They couldn't compete. So I know the Mexico side. What's or is that the story?
It kind of is really odd because it goes both ways. So I just talked about the U.S. government commodities with wheat, corn, and soybeans. So the Mexicans actually were growing a lot of corn. That's how they made their livelihood. So when NAFTA came about, and with the increase in U.S. government subsidies, there got to be just a flood of these commodity crops on the market. And that actually forced many Mexican farmers, corn farmers, to go out of business because they just could not get any decent price for their corn. And actually, that's kind of true, and for some ways, for many American farmers too. There's just a glut of corn on the market. There's only so much you can do with it. So, paradoxically, the Mexican farmers, many of them have had to leave their home countries and actually go to try to find farm work in the U.S.
Right, they're now immigrating to the U.S., trying to find jobs in the U.S.
Legally or illegally, either way. But the paradoxical thing, too, is farms, especially in Florida. Florida used to be a vegetable basket for the entire East Coast in the winter decades ago. Well, now, because you can grow tomatoes so much cheaper in Mexico right across the border, most of the Florida farmers have actually had to go out of business.
Wow, so it goes both directions.
Right. And that's directly because they cannot compete with those cheaper labor prices. Now, I'm not putting a fault on anybody here, blame on anybody. It's just simply the economics.
Well, you don't know until you have it happen, and then you say, well, this is not good.
Right, and so that's one reason why, until I interviewed actually this farmer in Florida, I had no idea the extent of the problem. So now if we go into our local market and we see, well, there's cucumbers are available, and they almost always say Mexico on them because that's where the produce is being grown. The thing that we can do as consumers is to say, I really want a U.S. source for this. It may not be local because obviously, we may not have the climate to grow locally.
Cucumbers,
but if we can demand that it's grown in the U.S., if enough of us as consumers come forward.
We have a choice. We have a choice when we're buying.
And we can demand that of our markets. And if there's enough of a demand, then the managers will listen.
And there's other reasons why we'd want to do that too. I mean, if I have food, so I'm here in the Pacific Northwest, so it's like probably the furthest from, you can imagine being away from Mexico. So probably that cucumber has been sitting on a truck being shipped over, right? So it's not as healthy as maybe the California cucumber or wherever.
Right. Well, and there are allowances that need to be made for greenhouses and, for the efficiency of things. But that's true. I mean, none of us should be eating, say, honeydew melon, for instance, at this time of the year in February, because the only decent melon would be coming from South America or someplace very far away. There's a real value to just eating things when they're good, which means eating them in season.
So it's not necessarily a moral, like, wow, think about all. I mean, there's two issues, right? There's kind of like, think about all the fuel costs and transportation costs. And then also there's that nutritional value, right? The nutritional value of that cantaloupe or whatever honeydew from South America, you're saying, is probably not as healthy, right?
Right, because it's had to sit in storage. It's had to be picked when it was unripe to some degree.
Because it ripens in the truck. They have to pick it beforehand, so it's ripening in the truck.
Melons don't really ripen very much after they are picked. So, but there's just a lot of reasons to just try to eat in the season and to try to get it as locally as possible.
Right.
And, if we're truly interested in being greener, living a better lifestyle for the planet, we really need to be thinking about our carbon footprint when it comes to the stuff that we eat. And, we often don't think about how many thousands of miles things have to be transported artificially. Just because we have a hankering for something that's way out of season.
Is it also true that if when I go to a farmer's market that fruit is going to be fresher than, say, like the fruit that I get over in Whole Foods or wherever?
Yeah, it's likely. Some farms often they especially for a farmer's market, they'll pick it just a day or two before.
Right, so it's super fresh.
Right. Whereas, even with Whole Foods, things can sit around for a while, and it's estimated that, say, if you go into your typical Safeway or grocery store, something's been sitting in a cooler for quite probably several weeks before it actually gets to out into the produce area, and then you buy it, and then you take it home, and it'll probably sit for another week or two.
Yeah, exactly.
And by that time, we're probably talking about maybe a month, easily between a month and 2 months since it actually came out of the field.
Okay. So let's go back to the book.
Yes.
Okay. So we have we have beans. So this is like so then and you're going to have about beans, and you'll talk about the different types of beans, black beans, all the different beans, selection, storage, nutrition, trimming, and cleaning.
Right. So for each crop, basically, in the book, I cover how to select, how to store. There's a lot of background information. And all the different ways to cook that are, with that particular crop. Of course, with herbs, it's a little bit different because also have it's occasionally drying instructions. Some veggies can have roasting instructions, but basically boiling, steaming, baking, broiling once in a while, stir fry, sautéing.
Right.
All these different ways, and I also have complete freezing instructions too.
Yeah, which is super important
for the crops that are. It's advised that you can freeze.
Yeah, and one of the things that you had in the very beginning book is how not to waste.
Right.
I feel like I'm really bad.
Most people are, especially this is where the storage information really comes into play because different things need to be stored different ways.
Right.
And so you can't assume that, what is good for a tomato is going to work for your parsnip, for instance. And
right.
So, and it's just good to get in the habit of right away on market day when you go shopping to just come home and just block out some time to properly prep your veggies.
Right, which means to either put it in the freezer if you're like, I'm not sure, or what does it mean to prep them?
Well, actually, to prep them, I mean, in the case of greens, it could mean like for cilantro, for instance, which is a pretty perishable herb.
Yes.
A lot of times, we come home and the greens are kind of damp.
Yes.
We wrap them tightly in a plastic bag. We throw them in the veggie drawer, and then
I didn't even put them in the plastic bag. I was like, why did these things? I actually. I didn't know. Okay, so cilantro, right?
So, yeah. So, and then 5 days later, we open up our drawer, and it's like a mess. It's a slimy mess. So, the thing with cilantro is, you need to get paper towel around it to kind of absorb some of the excess moisture. Excess moisture.
Yeah, mistake number one.
It's an enemy of vegetables.
Okay, could it be parsley or cilantro, anything?
It could be a lot of different things.
Okay. So herb, like wrap it up. So
or you could also just stick it in a glass of water because they're actually living plants. If you think about it, they're living plants. So there's actually nothing to stop you from just snipping the ends like a bunch of flowers and just sticking it in a glass of water.
And how long will it last for that?
It will last, about a week. As much.
Well, it's better than sitting in the refrigerator just turning into mush.
Right.
Okay, because what I end up doing at Whole Foods is I'll go in and I'll have a recipe that requires cilantro. So I'll like 1 tablespoon, and I want fresh cilantro.
Right.
And it's cheaper to buy that than the little packages of herbs.
Sure.
So I'll take 3 sprigs and I'll say, just charge me for the full thing. And they're like, what? I'm like, I'm not going to use the rest of the cilantro, and I'll be consumed with guilt for this 99 cents. And I'll feel so bad. So give this rest of it to someone else, and I will just buy the whole thing.
Well, one way with herbs, actually, interesting that you bring that up, is that you can buy the whole bunch, but since it probably won't last very long, or as long as you need it to, just chop them up immediately and fill ice cube trays with these chopped up herbs and put a little olive oil or melted butter in, just enough to so that it can
that's
freeze.
Brilliant. So you literally
just freeze them in the ice cube trays in your freezer, and then once they're frozen, you pop them out in a Ziploc bag, label the bag, and those will keep for up to 6 months, 6 to 8 months.
That's brilliant.
And that way you always have a solution. You always have these herbs ready to go. And the nice thing with the olive oil or butter is then you can just throw like one of those cubes into a soup or whatever sauce or whatever dish you're making. Yes.
Okay, that just seems like you just saved me from the guilt of like all those like thrown out herbs that I just and having to buy literally say just charge me for the whole thing.
Right, exactly.
That was the best tip
yes.
ever. Okay. Okay, so let's actually we're going to take, for folks, we're going to be also having a YouTube video where you can actually look, because we're going to, in the next part, we're going to talk about some, we have all sorts of vegetables here. We're going to talk about how to choose, store, prepare, all those kinds of good things. So make sure to listen to the YouTube video, which you can find on the Fired Up with CJ page, and tell us your website. Tell us about your website and stuff that you're doing, too.
So the website is bountyfromthebox.com. So just the title of the cookbook, bountyfromthebox.com.
Yes.
And actually, at the moment, until from now until February 28th, I'm actually running a promotion to celebrate CSA Day. So if you go to my website, bountyfromthebox.com, click on Order the Book. On that ordering page, if you type in a promo code, and it's just CSA Day 15, so CSA Day 15, that'll give you 15% off the cookbook. And my book is $35, and so this will be a savings of $5.25 per book. So
excellent. Okay. Does that include shipping costs?
No, shipping is extra.
Okay. All right. All right. So just to I just want to get folks that also. So it's like, so here's the one for beans, and then what's in here? Like there's a storage.
Okay. So right, yeah. So in case of beans, we don't have this for every crop because not every crop requires it, but we have. Just kind of going over some of the different kinds of beans, just because there are so many. Okay, and then we go into, that's maybe a little bit hard to see here, but I go into a little bit about the history. So each crop kind of follows this format of history, nutrition, we go into season, how to select things. So if you're not getting things in your box, this gives you a primer about how to select it at the market, at the grocery store. Again, how to store things. We always go through on how to trim and clean everything. With beans, they're kind of special. So we had a lot of soaking instructions, kind of soaking and prepping. And then we go into freezing. And the beans doesn't cover all the steaming and
because there isn't steaming,
but most of the other crops do. These sections here, and it's maybe a little hard to see, is these are equivalents and measures, and so this can be really useful. Like if you if you have a quantity of something fresh or something canned or something cooked, and you're trying to translate that into a recipe that you're doing.
Yes, I have that all the time.
We have equivalents here. This is a list of complementary herbs, seasonings, and foods, and so this is really handy because it actually lists out different foods and herbs and seasonings that go with beans.
Thing. Yeah, that's good to know.
And finally, and then here, this is a list of serving suggestions, and every crop will have a list of these serving suggestions. And these actually kind of go nicely hand in hand with the complementary herb, seasonings, and foods list because a lot of us don't have everything in our pantry for every recipe. But you can but chances are pretty good that you have something in your fridge,
something off
in your pantry off either the list or else the serving suggestion ideas, which those in themselves are not actually recipes, but they just give you some ideas.
Yeah, ideas, because that's often the hard time. I mean, I have to go onto a recipe site and then figure out what the heck am I going to do. Like I'll literally type in stuff and figure out, but then you can actually look here and find out. Okay, so what's after that?
And then after that, and then there are the recipes. And so, and in the case...
White bean and basil salad, that sounds good. Harlow House baked beans, raisin pinto bean muffins?
Yes.
What the heck? Okay, I would never have thought of making a bean muffin.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's quite a few of these. And then Italian white bean soup, and then we have one on cabbages. So basically, we get to the next one in the alphabet for winter vegetables.
There's over 360 recipes in all in the book. This is on top of the serving suggestions. And it's a little bit unusual in that this is an anthology of recipes.
Yeah.
So my recipes actually come from all different sources. So the very well-known people in the field like Deborah Madison, Mark Bittman, Yadam Modelangi, all the way to some really highly regarded food bloggers some recipes come from CSA farms themselves.
And how did you pick them? How did you decide which ones? Have they road tested by you already?
Yes, I did work with a cookbook editor, actually, one in Seattle, who actually worked at the herb farm. Her name is Lisa Gordonier. But most of the recipes actually have already been thoroughly tested because of where they come from.
Right.
But obviously others we did have to go through and try and make some adjustments on. But the reason that I did it this way is that a lot of times when you get a cookbook, it's all kind of one style of cooking.
Right, yeah, it's like Italian or whatever, right? So this actually has a lot of different types of things.
So this has just a lot of different flavors. It ranges from, kind of like your classic American comfort food, like potato salad, all the way to just some really unusual things.
Like bean muffins.
Right, all different ethnicities as well. And it's not a diet, it's not a cookbook that specializes on any particular diet. There is a listing in the back of the book that contains listings for vegetarian, vegan, and gluten-free.
Right.
But not all the recipes are vegetarian. They really just kind of cover all different kinds of cooking and eating styles.
And so you'd have to look at figuring out which one of these are vegan.
The listing in the back of the book does actually list all the vegetarian, vegan, and gluten-free recipes.
I see. So like the roasted beet salad in here has bacon. So for example, that wouldn't be one.
You could just leave out the bacon if you wanted to.
But why, if you weren't? The bacon! Bring back the bacon! Okay.
And the other thing, too, is that there's several indexes in the back of the book that are very useful. They're recipes by the type of dish. So you can look up, like, if you want a main dish or a bean dish or a side dish or salad.
Right. I love it. Okay, so here's the whole scenario from beginning to end. I get a box, and I get a box of winter vegetables, and I go, what?
Right.
Like, what am I going to do with these vegetables? Right. Chances are they're going to be in this winter section in your book. Right. I can actually look at the vegetables, know what to do with them, and then where they go, how to store them, and then have a recipe.
Right, exactly. And along that note, this index is recipes by ingredient. So this is especially useful because, you get your box or you see something good at the farmer's market and you just want to know what to do with it. But obviously a lot of the recipes in the book contain more than one vegetable.
Right.
And so this is actually a complete cross-reference. So this basically lists like all the recipes in the book that contain oregano or asparagus or whatever. So
I saw this one vegetable in Whole Foods, and it looked like, I want to say it's like kohlrabi. I don't even know what it was. It was like this big circular item, and it had a little sphere. It looked like a mace. Okay. And I just thought, I would like to eat this, but I don't even know what it is. So I could probably go to your book, go to the index, and find it.
Yes.
Okay. Because I went to the vegetable guy at Whole Foods. I'm like, what is this? And he said, it's a vegetable.
Did it have a top on it, like leaves? Or was it just like a little
It's like a big sphere. Like it looked like the size of maybe a honeydew melon. And it was like a yellowish green color, and it had little... I don't know what it was. I was like, what is this? I want to eat it.
Okay.
But I could actually go to your book, find it, and then figure out what to do.
If you have the name of it.
Go to the back. Yeah, first, that's one thing. I need to figure out what it is. All right, this has been lovely. So, folks, go to bountyfromthebox.com if you want to get the book, and make sure to do it before February 28th.
If you want to get the discount, the 15% discount.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Well, thank you.
Yeah,
I really appreciate it.
It means so much to me that you're listening to the show. I would love your support in any way by giving me comments below, or to subscribe to the show, or share the show with friends. Thank you again for your support. Love and blessings.